Welcome to Brain Wellness, the podcast. I'm your host, Mandy NP. Each episode will bring you a new topic or interview related to brain health and wellness as part of my mission to help you on the path to a healthier, happier brain. So, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. My guest today is Jenn Fredericks. Jenn has overcome immense adversity and emerged as a beacon of resilience and hope for others. Her experience as a chronic kidney disease patient, spanning 3 decades, including 2 kidney transplants, and as a caregiver for her daughter with a life-threatening diagnosis, speaks volumes about her strength, determination, and compassion. As a personal resilience practitioner and prosilience coach, she guides her clients toward a new perspective on life. Her approach of cultivating self-awareness while honoring the struggles and triumphs in life builds a foundation to create renewed vitality, inner calm, and joy in life. The specific focus on patients with life-threatening chronic illness and their caregivers highlights her deep understanding of the demanding, unique challenges faced by these individuals. By empowering them to build proactive resilience, she enables them to move from uncertainty, fear, and depletion to experiencing more ease and joy in life, fostering a greater sense of well-being. Thank you so much for being here today, Jenn.
Thank you for having me, Mandy.
Yeah. So we got a little bit of it in your bio, but I always like to start off with my first question and tell me a little bit about you. How'd you get to where you are today?
Sure. Well, as mentioned, I started dealing with my own life-threatening chronic illness when I was 14, 15 years old, when I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. And nothing of the genetic variety. They think it was an untreated case of strep throat that happened to just affect my kidneys. And I was very blessed to have my dad as a wonderful match. So at 16 years old, I received my first kidney transplant. And that lasted 18 years. I got to do all the things that a teenager wants to do, graduate high school, go to college. I was studying theater and public relations at the time. And, met my husband and we graduated, got married, got a house, adopted a daughter. And then that kidney said, I'm out. See ya. So it lasted 18 years. And cannot even believe that my husband's fraternal twin brother was a match for me in 2012. And so I received my second kidney transplant then. And that was when I was, mother to a 4-year-old. And that came with all of its own challenges and life-giving things at the same time. So I was in marketing at the time and really enjoyed it, a lot of event marketing, all of those sorts of things. And then was laid off about the same time my daughter was a year into her diagnosis with the low-grade brain tumor in 2015. And so that's when like everything went and kind of imploded in. And I knew that I couldn't continue doing life the same way anymore. I knew that I needed other support so that I could be a support for her. And thankfully remembered some mindfulness guided imagery that I did during my first or second kidney transplant and decided to really go deep into that. And I signed up for mindfulness-based stress reduction course at the same time. Since I was laid off, I was like, what's this life coaching thing I hear about? So I got into a certification course, and 6 months in, I was hired as a contractor for that coaching company to work with their lifestyle division, and did that for 7 years, and finally realized that I was ready to focus on my pain and my passion, which became my purpose, as they say, and decided to go all in on supporting chronic illness patients and family caregivers through this marathon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love getting people's backstories every week in these episodes because I think it builds who you are. That
Mm-hmm.
that purpose comes from that passion, as you mentioned. The purpose for what you're doing, the more I think personal connection you have with it, the more drive you have to do the best job that you can to help other people.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. And I'm hearing that feedback more and more as I work with one-on-one clients and also with organizations who want to fill a gap they may have to support their family caregivers where, maybe they need a little more help or time, and also information from the lived experience, and also the information that I'm bringing forward with the idea of prosilience or proactive resilience, and building that. And so it's been really rewarding to be able to focus my energy on this community.
Yeah. So what exactly is prosilience? Where did this idea come from?
I wish I could take credit for it. It was actually developed by an industrial and organizational psychologist named Linda Hoops. She's also been studying resilience for 30 years. And so prosilience stands for proactive plus resilience is prosilience. And I was studying resilience during the first 7 years of coaching because people always asked me, how are you so resilient? You always, not that I'm always Pollyanna-esque, toxic positivity, but like I always find like a silver lining or how to support myself and others in difficult times. And I didn't know how I did it. Researched resilience, compassion fatigue, compassion resilience, and ran across prosilience. I was reading this book by Linda Hoops, and it was like she had followed me since I was 15 years old. She put language and a framework to what I did innately. And now I'm able to say, here, this is the basis of how I do it. Now let's find your way in doing it so that you can support yourself and truly live the life that you're working so hard to heal.
I love I love that. I have had several times when I've read books or listened to books too that I feel like the author is speaking directly to me, and it's really cool when that happens.
It
Um,
certainly is.
yeah. I love that idea of that proactive resilience because we always think of resilience as something that comes after the fact, or
Mm-hmm.
we learn it after we have a big impact happen in our lives, and then we try to figure out how to move forward with
Mm-hmm.
that resilience. How does that, how do we get to be proactively resilient?
Sure. There are four building blocks in the Prosilience framework. And as you were just mentioning, the traditional idea or definition of resilience is like the capacity of a person to maintain core purpose and integrity in faces of changed circumstances, and that ability to like bounce back. But if we look at prosilience, it's about intentionally building your capability to deal with life's challenges before you encounter them. And in order to do that, when I work with people, first we take a look at sort of where you're at, and we work to bring you up to your resilience baseline. And we do that through using the four building blocks of prosilience, which are one, to learn about calming yourself and self regulation ideas and techniques. Second, we talk about when you're facing a challenge, let's look at a strategy with which you want to face it. Do you want to look at the challenge and reframe it? So take something that looks and feels like danger and find a way to look at it that gives it a more positive meaning that allows you to have some possibility of moving forward. Do you want to change it? Can you change it? Just do something to make it something you'd more like to be in. Or this is the one I kind of use a lot, which is that accept what is. Accept that this is what's happening. I kind of see myself as a realistic optimist. Like, accept what is happening and then adjust ourselves to the situation. So that's the second building block. The third then is to solve the problem using our resilience muscles. And one of the key ideas of prosilience is that we are all born with these 7 resilience muscles, and that we can go about building them should some of them be a little less strong than the ones that support us when we're used to facing challenge. And those are positivity, confidence, priorities, creativity, connection, structure, and experimenting. And then as you're doing those things, we take another look at the fourth building block, which I actually kind of like to do earlier on and throughout, is managing your personal energy, our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. If we do not have human energy, we can't fuel our resilience. You could have the strongest resilience muscles, and if you cannot fuel them, they aren't going to support you in the way in which you deserve to be supported. So I really focus a lot on managing energy with the caregivers and the patients that I work with, because from personal experience, I know that energy was the first thing to go for me. And when I didn't have that energy, I couldn't access any of my other skills or attributes or any of those things. So I really do like to focus on the managing energy piece at the forefront and then beyond.
Yeah, I was going to say if you hadn't been following along on my show previous to coming on here with me today, I was in a car accident a year and a half ago, and my
Yeah.
own traumatic brain injury experience, energy was definitely the first to go. So I always had people telling me how resilient I had been for things that I'd experienced in my life leading up to that accident, but that hit differently because the energy wasn't there. So how do you deal with the other pillars if you don't have that energy piece?
I mean, you can enact them, and I'm sure that they will support you some, but my experience has been just an utter feeling of frustration
Mhm.
because, like you said, I've done this before. I've been doing this since I was 15. Why can't I do this now? Well, it's because that I had some energy draining happening. I didn't know to look for where the leaks were and then look for different ways and habits to plug those leaks so I could actually pour back into myself without it draining out the other side before I could even, make progress or feel better or solve a problem.
Yeah. So I guess we're kind of getting at it, but what's the big importance? Why do we need this prosilience? Why can't we just be resilient?
Oh, I mean, if resilience works for you, I am all for it. Like I am a huge proponent of if whatever you're doing right now is working for you, continue on. I needed prosilience because kidney disease, kidney transplants are not a cure, they're a treatment. My daughter is 16 now. She was diagnosed at 7. Her brain tumor isn't one that we can have surgically removed fully. So this is going to be with her for her life. I couldn't keep falling down and picking myself back up. I didn't have the energy to do that. So when I found this idea of proactively building myself up before the next challenge with my daughter's illness or my illness or career hits me, like it's more like being able to sit behind a batter in a baseball game with the catcher's mitt and you're ready to kind of catch whatever life throws at you and you have the strength to make the next decision to move forward. That's my best argument for prosilience because life is always going to be changing. That's the only constant. And if you're okay with the changes kind of draining you each time, and then you have enough energy to pull yourself back up, by all means, keep doing that. If you would like to be able to keep more of an even keel as you manage life's challenges, then I would invite you to take a look at prosilience. What can you do little by little, day by day? Like, I don't want to give you a whole new list of to do things that just overwhelm you. I am not about that. I'm about taking a look at what little tips and tricks or habits can you change just a little bit day by day to support you in strengthening yourself. So, like, I don't even really think anymore about how I'm managing my personal energies because I increased using them little by little, day by day in different ways. So it's just more intertwined in my DNA now. And everyone can get there if they so desire, so that it doesn't have to be this. I have a resource handout called "You Can't Self-Care Your Way Out of Caregiver Burnout." And what I mean by that is a lot of people have this idea that you need to make these grand gestures for yourself to do self-care and give yourself more energy and boost yourself. And my idea is more like if we take a look at managing our personal energies and we do it little by little, day by day, we're going to be able to build so that our returns are much higher than if we take 2 hours out for a massage one day and then the next day you find yourself back on the floor with no energy because you got right back into life and you're doing it the same way you did before. That's that's my pitch for prosilience.
That's a good one. It's a good one. In your opinion, what are some of the big differences between prosilience and resilience other than just that energy piece?
Right. So I think it is the idea of preparing yourself for life's challenges before they happen. And there are three different ways that we can actually do that when, if someone would like to work with me. So we can take a look at um, as you live your day, do you have observations and awarenesses around where you might be losing energy or not being able to pick a strategy to face a challenge? Or maybe you'd like to build your confidence muscle. And we can actually use it like ideas. And here's one: positivity. Okay. You're driving down the freeway and someone cuts you off. That for me used to be a really big dig. Like that would take my energy, my mental would go somewhere, my emotional would go somewhere, my spiritual would go. So then I started looking at, okay, can I see any possibility or hope in this situation where this person just like cut me off? Like maybe they didn't do it to me because they didn't like me. Like we know that's not what happens, but a lot of times that's what we think. Can you reframe it a little bit and say, oh, that person maybe needed to get in this lane because they're rushing to the hospital because a new life is coming into the world and they want to be there for it. So just being out in the world and taking time to put these four building blocks into practice for yourself. You can also be very, very intentional about it and come up with an action plan of how you want to start using the strategies differently, how you want to build your self regulation and calming techniques. If you want to build your positivity muscle, you can actually do a process where for every one negative thought or emotion you feel, identify three more helpful or positive ones, because that can start to help, um, rewire some of our neuroplasticity ability that our brain has. And so those are ways that you can start to use prosilience in your day-to-day life without having to make huge changes or without falling flat on your face because this huge life challenge came and you couldn't support yourself. And then you had to use all of your energy just to get back to okay.
I can see this being something that should be taught in every high school.
I would love that.
I'm just, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the teenagers that live in my house and how um, some of those day-to-day activities just take away their ability to cope.
Yeah.
And having that, we talk about resilience all the time, but just having that
Mm-hmm.
ability to plan ahead. It's funny that you make the comment about the scenarios in the car. My husband and I actually do that. We come up with funny scenarios for why people cut us off in traffic.
That's
And
amazing.
I've never thought about why we do it, but it's just it makes it more fun. Right? You don't get upset with people cutting you off. That in
Right.
that it prevents a lot of road rage, probably. But but it's just little things that you can do like that in your day-to-day life that would just prevent things from blowing out of proportion.
Right. And that's a lot of times where I'll invite clients to look. If we start to see the thought spirals happening, that's definitely a drain on mental energy.
Mhm.
And when you're spending all of your time on these thought spirals and worry or making up stories that aren't really true about what people are thinking about you and something happens, that is a mental and emotional energy drain, which then can lead to physical
Mhm.
energy drain. So then we take a look at, okay, how can we plug that leak? One great question to ask yourself when you have awareness that you're going down that thought spiral is that true? Just that moment of disruption of saying, is that true? Can stop that thought spiral, that worry, and allow you to plug that leak a little bit. And then you can use your resilience muscle maybe to like refill yourself a little bit. Like, oh no, um, I can see where in the past I have blah, 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 like use that positivity muscle to help build yourself back up. And it's so funny. Like my daughter is 16, she's a sophomore. And so when I hear they're doing amazing things and an advisory that they have once a week, they'll be doing mindfulness and that kind of thing. I'm like, oh, I can't do this. I'd love to come in and do it. And she's like, Mom, you'd get eaten alive. I'm like, oh, great. Like, then they really do need this stuff. But no, I love that idea. Like, let's get it into. high schools. Let's get it into it is in organizations. There are resilience practitioners that go and do this in organizations that have all been trained by the Resilience Alliance, who I also got my certification from. I am, hoping to get in and share this idea even with nursing students so that before they get into the hospital and before their bedside, that they know how to boundary protect themselves, keep their energy fueled so that they don't hit that burnout that so many do. And then for patients and caregivers as well, they're on the same issue as like the nurses and other care team members. Just having some simple tools that you can carry with you day to day to support you without feeling like you're overhauling your life.
Mhm. Yeah, I actually just talked about that burnout piece as a patient perspective because
Yeah,
as a healthcare worker for 25 years, we've always talked about burnout as far as the healthcare perspective, the worker perspective,
right.
taking care of people dealing with chronic illness and that side of things. But being the patient and having appointment after appointment after
Mm-hmm.
appointment all the time, I
After medication,
yeah,
after
yeah.
misdiagnosis, after, yeah.
Yes, there is definitely a burnout sense on that in that regard as well. And
Mm-hmm.
having a little bit of prosilience there would certainly be helpful for so many people. Yeah, I would love to see this kind of explode in a good way.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and thank you so much for seeing the value in it and acknowledging that. And I actually have had that thought as a chronic illness patient. Um, and I'm not trying to knock any type of support that's out there, even on social media, where patients can go and express themselves as they need to authentically. But this is what I find missing
Hmm.
on some of those accounts or support groups. And it's okay to vent.
Hmm.
Then what do you replace that with?
Hmm.
Like, how do you fill yourself up after you release that? And so I am hoping that we start talking about patient burnout because that isn't a topic. Family caregiver burnout is becoming more and more.
Yep.
This is it. I know that we may air in a couple of weeks, but November is National Family Caregivers Month. Is there a national chronic illness patients month? I mean, there are for the individual illnesses, but as a whole, talking about patient mental wellness and support, where is that? So I am hoping to make a dent in that as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's definitely needed. Um, I had a thought and then I lost it because of my own uh, chronic injury. Brain does
Yes.
not always want to work. But
Yes.
there are definitely aspects of this that need to be shared and need to be out there. So I am on board. So if this podcast can help you, if there's any other way that I can help you get this out there, because I think I do. It needs to be shared and more people need to be talking about it because it is something that affects everybody, whether you're a patient, whether you're a caregiver, whether you are a teenager, an adult dealing with taking care of somebody with a chronic illness or the person
Yeah.
with the chronic illness yourself. You have to be able to deal with whatever life is going to throw at you because life is going to continue throwing things at us. It's not going to stop until the day that we take our last breath. So,
Right.
and then it's
Yeah.
just going to keep throwing things at our family members.
Right. And so that's one reason that I'm grateful that I also found this work because even if I'm not sitting down and saying to my daughter, okay, right now, what resilience muscles are you going to use? Like
Yeah.
the way that we model and influence for those in our lives, there's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And so it can continue to support far after we've transitioned out of the earth.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. So for anybody listening, are there a couple of things that you would suggest that they do right now to start leaning toward that way, whether they're going to work with you as a Prosilience coach
Mhm.
or not? What are a couple of things that they might be able to do now to start getting into that thought process?
Oh, I love that question. Yes. So awareness is always the first step. A lot of times in life, we feel like we're on a hamster wheel and we just go, go, go. We just white knuckle it through. If you're starting to feel sensations of like tension or a lot of negative thinking or negative emotions, like, can you take a deep breath, practice the pause, and be aware and not just push it aside? Like, this is emotions are messengers that are letting us know that we aren't experiencing something the way we'd like to be. Can we take a moment, just breathe, know that we're going to be okay, and ask, what is this trying to tell me? That's always, I think, the first step. And then from there, you're also working on the first building block of prosilience, that calming yourself piece. Because when we can calm ourselves and we can bring our wise mind on board, we're able to open ourselves up to more opportunity for problem solving thinking, creative thinking, or just, opening our world a little bit so we aren't just so narrowly focused on trying to survive. Like we can start to really live and support ourselves in a different way. So pause, awareness, breathe. And then if you have a little more time, ask yourself, where am I feeling like I don't have any energy? Is it physical? Am I not able to use my body to get things done? Is it mental? Am I not able to think clearly and quickly right now? Maybe I need to look for a leak there. Emotional? Am I having more reactions versus responses based in that emotional space? And then spiritual, I love this one. A lot of mine start with the spiritual energy. It's being able to connect with something outside of yourself, a bigger sense of meaning and purpose. For some, it might be a higher power, religion. For some people, I just suggest like, what's important to you? Can you ask yourself, what's important to me in this moment and how do I want to show up? And then all of those forms of energy are interconnected. So if we can work and supply one, we're going to feel a little bit better in the others, which will allow us to further explore the other building blocks of prosilience. But just to recap, awareness, pause and breathe. Ask yourself, how would you rather be experiencing this moment or showing up? And do I need some extra energy to be able to do that?
I love that. I think awareness has come up on this show so many times because so often now we don't take the time to think about what's going on in our bodies and we don't know ourselves as well as we should. I
Mm-hmm.
think in any diagnosis or lack of diagnosis, if we don't have one yet, anything that we're dealing with, if we are not aware of what's going on in our body, we're not going to be able to address it appropriately. So
Agreed.
I love that you recommend starting with that awareness because that's 100% where we need to start with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have any upcoming events or projects or anything you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, let's see. I do have a couple personal stories coming out in two book anthologies. One is going to be releasing, I think both of them actually will be releasing in early 2025. So can look for those. One is called When Stories. I also do have that personal story debuting on YouTube on the When Stories channel on December 8th. And it's a lovely platform to be able to share stories of transformation and resilience. And then the other one is called Resilient AF, Volume 2. So those will both be coming out in 2025. And I do have a resource available on my website, prosilienccoach.com. This is specifically targeted for family caregivers and how to um, help yourself out of burnout. And so that's available there. And otherwise, I have one other exciting thing in the works. I'm just going to say it because then I know I'll do it. Is coming up with I'm developing a video centric family caregiver connection community. So people have a place to go and share, regardless of where they are in their caregiving journey, and really connect because that's one thing that caregivers we crave and a lot of times are missing because we're in isolation during the caregiving experience. And so I want a place where we can be human together, where we can be non-judgmental and accepting of where everyone's at in their journey, and then also bring in experts once a month for webinars. I'd love to hold some live support groups, but as well as asynchronistic coaching. So if you have a question and it's the middle of the night and you're in the hospital with your loved one, post that question via text or video. And then and me or one of the experts or another one of the caregivers in the community would be able to offer some support. So that's in the works. I'm going to put it out there because then it will manifest.
Yes. Yep. I love that. I love that. All good things. Where can people find you so that they can find all of these resources?
Sure. The website is probably
Website,
the
yeah.
best.
Okay.
So prosilienccoach.com. I probably, it's a difficult to spell one, but PROSILIENCE coach.com.
Okay. And then you did send me your social links as well. I will have
Mm-hmm.
all of those in the show notes so that people can click on those and find you easily for those also. Any last things that you want to share with our listeners today as we wrap up?
Just really offer the invitation and permission to be gentle with yourself as you're moving through life. Even though you might think you have things all figured out in one instance, another instance may come along and you may feel a little less equipped. You have all of the answers that you need inside of you. It's just being able to access them. And one way to do that is to be gentle and breathe. And then when you do need resources, to reach out and ask for help.
Great advice. Excellent words to close on. Thank you so much for being here today, Jenn.
My pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this with others to help me continue on with my mission to help people live healthier, happier lives. Go to www.brainwellnesssolutions.com to see what I'm up to and get links to all the social medias there. See you next time.